If you had to think about LeBron James and you had to think about one of the greatest basketball players ever, overall, just one of the greatest athletes ever, and you had to think about what books that man would read, what do you think would be on his TBR? Let me stop you right there. You're wrong. Let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. If this is your first time stumbling on to my little corner, both of the internet and physically my little corner, and this isn't a welcome back, I know you got a quick question. Yo, Chris reads? And yeah, I do know how to read, I promise. Allegedly. And today we're gonna be talking about LeBron James. There's been this meme going around, and I guess it's been going around for like a while now, where LeBron James is just always on the first page of reading a book. And this has been going on for years, right? And I remember this happening, or seeing this meme for the first time a long time ago. And I was like, what books was he reading? Because it happened so many times that there are multiple images in the meme of him being near the first page on a book. And there are also memes of like LeBron James maybe or maybe not being a liar. So I wanted to go back. I wanted to look at the books that this man was allegedly reading in his memes. And like, hey, we share that too. You know, like not only do we have very similar skills on the basketball court, but we also are very good at allegedly reading books. So that's what we're gonna talk about today. I found a USA Today article that's a little outdated. It's from 2018, but it had, I think, 6 or 7 of the books that LeBron James has been seen reading while playing basketball in the locker room, walking into the tunnel and all that. And that's what we're gonna talk about today. So I found the article, but I have not read it. So like I said, it has been a minute, but it's still useful to see the truth behind the meme. The first is a legendary book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I think I have The Alchemist right here, actually. And there's a video, I'll make sure to put it up on screen, of LeBron James reading it probably before dogging the Celtics in 2018. For those of y'all that have not read, this is a very popular, very well-known book called The Alchemist. In this book, you're following kind of a shepherd boy named Santiago who's going on his like both physical journey and also spiritual and mental and emotional journey as he travels the world doing like odd jobs and kind of trying to figure out what his personal treasure is, right? Like what is essentially his meaning of life. The book has, like I said, a lot of inspirational tones, but it also is very much like, how can you listen to your heart and listen to your emotions and kind of follow the dreams and follow the journey that you're meant to go on, right? Now, for a lot of y'all that don't watch basketball, I really do think that LeBron James's story is a very interesting story to at least learn about, right? This man was touted as the greatest thing to happen to basketball since he was in high school.
Freshman year to my sophomore year, they moved our home games to the university. So
how big was your high school gym?
How big was our high school?
1,500.
1,500. We opened up my first home game, my sophomore year, is at the University of Akron U, which is like 6,000 people.
And they sell season tickets.
So right then and there, as a sophomore, I'm 15, I knew that this is a business. This is definitely business.
And then his senior year, they actually put the games on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
This man, from the very inklings of him being a basketball player, he was going to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time, truthfully, whether he wanted to or not. So I can see kind of, even though they're not exact situations, I can kind of see the parallel of both the journey that LeBron James has been on and the journey that Santiago goes on in this book. Throughout these pages, Coelho tells a story of someone who knows there is something out there for them, who knows that there is something more than just being a shepherd in their life, right? They meet a very interesting cast of characters that help them kind of decide, you know, step by step, location by location, what it is they want for themselves. And so I could see kind of like the complete opposite of that, where at a very young age, before he was legally an adult, LeBron James knew that his journey, his life story was basketball, right? And luckily he's been able to become like a philanthropist and does a lot of stuff off of the court, but very early on in his life, his entire story was basketball. And there's a quote in the article from a podcast interview that LeBron did, I think it was in 2017, where he talks about how this book helped him realize that you can change the narrative of your life. LeBron James was so good at basketball so young that a lot of people said that he was going to be the greatest basketball player ever, but a lot of people also said that that was all he was going to be. And I think reading this book helped LeBron realize that he could be a lot more than that, right? And I think that's a story that we can all take from this book. You know, I think I gave this book like 3 or 4 stars when I read it, and I don't think it kind of necessitates a second read, which is one of the reasons I didn't give it like a higher rating. I got everything I needed out of this book during the first read, and I think that's a perfectly fine thing. I think this book is a must read no matter what point in your life you're in. I think this book can be very helpful in kind of reiterating the things that we already know, but attaching a narrative, an inspirational story to it that can help us kind of connect kind of the things we already know with the things that we're not kind of implementing that we should be implementing in our lives. I hope that makes sense. But for LeBron to have this on his list of books, I don't think is a bad choice at all. And especially with how he talked about it in the road tripping podcast, I don't think that he you know, did one of these and said he read the book. You know, it seems like he got a good message out of it, and I recommend this book to other people that can get their hands on it. So first book down, The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho, both Chris Reads and LeBron approved. All right, let's scroll down. Let's see. The Hunger Games. This is the main picture I remember that inspired this video. What does LeBron James read before the game? Hunger Games. This was in 2012, back when he was still on the Heat. And again, if we zoom in here, he might not be in page 1, but he's definitely like page 4 max, you know? Now, I don't know if this makes me a true non-reader, but I have not read The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. For a second, I was gonna say that I was too old or too young for those books. I don't think I was. I just wasn't in a point in my life where I was reading very heavy. I think I missed a lot of young adult books that I probably would have really enjoyed during that time because I had like other things on my brain. For those of y'all like me that haven't read The Hunger Games, you're following this girl, Katniss Everdeen, who is in a battle royale type of scenario, which if you haven't read the OG battle royale, I think it's a Japanese or a Chinese author. I could be mistaken, but I read that in high school and I really enjoyed that book. But that goes without saying, you're following this girl, Katniss. She's fighting to stay alive. She's fighting for her family, for her district, and she has to make some incredibly tough decisions that obviously not only impact her, but also the lives of everyone around her. And I don't really know why LeBron would read this book. I think they have a quote. For me, it's relaxing, honestly. You spend so much preparation for the games. Sometimes you just need to get away from it for a little bit. The reading has helped me get away from the game a little bit, and I'm able to zero in once I'm done and get ready for the game. And I think that's one of the best things about fiction that I've kind of realized as I've gotten older and as I've started reading more fiction, more importantly, is that while there's a lot of information in nonfiction books and a lot of information that interests me in nonfiction books, I think you can get a lot from reading fiction stories, whether it's literary, whether it's fantasy, whether it's historical. There's still a lot of entertainment and knowledge and story, for lack of a better term, that you can get from fiction writing. And if someone like LeBron James reads a fiction book to get away from the stresses of life, I can read a fiction book every once in a while too, you know? All right, next up, what are we talking about? Let's see what we got here. We got Decoded by Jay. My man's is on the floor. His feet are kicked up reading Jay-Z's autobiography Decoded in 2012 before an NBA Finals game. Well, now that's got me interested. Hold up, I got to do some, let me do some research real quick. So I can't find the exact game, but I do know that this was during the 2012 NBA Finals, which the Miami Heat and LeBron James eventually did win. So in NBA Finals where LeBron James reads Jay-Z's Decoded, he's 1-0. I've never understood a lot of kind of like musical artist autobiographies because I feel like, especially when it comes to rappers and specifically rappers like Jay-Z, I feel like a lot of their story is told through the music. And also Jay-Z isn't like a shy dude, like he's gonna give an interview and things like that. So I don't know why I would never gravitate towards reading a Jay-Z autobiography before I would listen to Jay-Z's music or even watch an interview with him. But like I said, there's a non-zero chance that reading that book helped LeBron James beat the 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder. So maybe he can decide what he wants to do with his reading time, you know? Did I get distracted reading the Wikipedia article of the 2012 NBA Finals? Yes, I did. The next book that this article talks about is West by West, My Charmed, Tormented Life by Jerry West. R.I.P. Jerry West. He passed away, I think, early this year, like June or July this year. So R.I.P. to the legend. For those of y'all that don't know, Jerry West is a legendary NBA player. He is attributed to being the logo. Officially, he isn't the NBA logo, but they used his picture, like you can tell, right? Once he finished his professional NBA career, he also did a lot of stuff with various organizations like the Lakers, like the LA Clippers. I think I'm missing a few there, but it was mostly those two. And all of this like great man, this legend of a player both on and off the court, came from an incredibly tormented and abusive childhood that he had to suffer to get through what eventually became his legacy. But I didn't know this book existed. Like I said, he did pass away earlier this year, and you just saw like such an outpouring of support from all of his fans and his supporters and the people that were able to meet him like one-on-one. So I'm pretty sure that there's like a lot of lessons you can take from his life story, and I hope that LeBron was able to take some of that and everything that he had to go through, or excuse me, Jerry West had to go through, and then apply it to his own life and his own situation. Because when he did pass away earlier this year, like I said, you just saw an outpouring of support from the people that knew him, the people that maybe met him a couple times, just like all the stories of how great of a player great of a person, excuse me, he was on and off the court. I do have a pretty long TBR list already. I'm looking at some of it right now. And then when I go to New York, I'm going to have an extra long TBR list. So I'll add it to the list, but I'm not going to get to this for a long time. Next up, we have The Pact, which is a book I've never heard of. 3 young men make a promise and fulfill a dream by Samson Davis, George Jenkins, Ramek Hunt, and Lisa Fraser Page. I'm just going to read the blurb right here from Barnes & Noble. Chosen by Essence to be among the 40 most influential African Americans, the 3 doctors grew up in the streets of Newark, facing city life's temptations, pitfalls, and even jail. But one day, these 3 young men made a pact. They promised each other that they would all become doctors and stick it out together through the long, difficult journey to attaining that dream. Samson Davis, George Jenkins, and Ramek Hunt are not only friends to this day, they are all doctors. This is a story about joining forces and beating the odds, a story about changing your life and the lives of those you love most together. That sounds like such an inspirational book. And I get it, when you're an insanely talented basketball player and you are reaching a point in your career where you have quite literally anything a human could ever want, right? You are the example of what these inspirational stories are. Like, you are an inspirational story. So I think learning more about those and reading more about people who are in situations very similar to yours, I think that's a very beautiful thing. And I have not heard of this book, but it does sound really interesting, and maybe, I'm not going to make any promises, but if I see it in a bookstore, I might read the first page or two, you know? Let me get a vibe off it, and then maybe I'll read it. Or maybe I could get it on Libby. This is a very high chance for a Libby book, you know what I mean? Next up is The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. The tipping point is that magic moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses a threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. Just as any single sick person can start an epidemic of the flu, so too can a small but precisely targeted push cause a fashion trend, the popularity of a new product, or a drop in the crime rate. That's a very interesting introduction. This article was written in 2018, so even back then, LeBron James had like already achieved a legendary career. He could have retired then and still been one of the greatest basketball players ever, right? But once that basketball career is over and you retire from the game and you're not playing basketball professionally anymore, what are you gonna do with all this time and money you have in your hand? And a lot of people retire. A lot of people go back to their home country or their hometown and just lay low. But when you are at a status like LeBron James is in, there's a lot of business ventures and a lot of things you can do to kind of not only further your name, but also further what you leave behind for your family and for everybody else. So to see kind of like a business focused book like that isn't really surprising, but it is really interesting because my issue with books like these, and it's what I mentioned, I don't know if y'all saw I'm talking to y'all like you watch every video I make. I don't know if y'all saw my ranting on every book I own video, but in that video I talked about 4DX, which is a business book talking about like the 4 disciplines of success or something like that. And my problem with books like that is they could very easily be kind of like boiled down into a TED Talk. And I'm 99% sure there's a TED Talk on this book because I remember seeing it. For 99% of people, you can get everything you need from a book like Tipping Point in an 8 to 12 minute TED Talk, you know? But when you're someone like LeBron James and you don't have to aspire for success, you don't have to aspire for money or like an opportunity, like you have it, right? Books like these, I think, can be very important in like pointing you in the right direction. Like you hear a lot of times about athletes or people with a lot of money who they go to people that they're supposed to trust, and they lead them the wrong way. Like this is a story in sports and business and everything. There's nothing wrong with giving yourself like a base level of information, right? So when you go to that business partner or to that recommendation or to that CEO, business owner, or whatever, you know, you have a base level of information that you can work off, and then you could hire or you can bring people in to help you kind of figure out the bits in between, you know? But for like 99% of people, I probably wouldn't read this book. I would just watch the TED Talk or like the 10-minute summary of this book that almost definitely exists somewhere on the internet. Got a little spoiled for me when I was looking at The Tipping Point, but the last book we have in this article is The Godfather by Mario Puzo. He's walking in a TD Garden wearing all black and reading The Godfather to go against the Celtics in 2017, it looks like. I love this book so much. This is probably, if I had to give it like one book that really got me back into reading, it is The Godfather. I don't remember when I got my copy, which is somewhere on that shelf, but I loved that book, and I still love that book so much because I feel like every time I read the book, I find something new about it. And again, it's the same thing that brings me back to Watchmen so many times, is I feel like every time I read the book, I like hook on to one conversation, or I hook on to one character or one plot line more so than I did in any of the other previous times that I've read the book. I also love the movie. If y'all have not done yourself the service of watching the Godfather movie, please do. You can find it wherever you find movies, I guess. But I will say, if the book in any way, shape, or form intimidates you, I think this is one of the rare situations where, as good as the book is, I love The Godfather so much. It is a 12-star book on a 5-star book scale. The movie's really good, and the movie might be better than the book. And I think the fact that I have this conversation with myself every time I try to think, like, is the book better? Is the movie better? I think the fact that I have this conversation with myself is just evidence that not even both, just the main story of this novel is so good that you can adapt it from novel to screenplay and it is still amazing. I don't know why LeBron James was reading this book. I'm happy he's reading this book. I would suggest this book to any and everybody. Yes, it has adult themes. Yes, it's the story of this family that you're following who is involved in organized crime. You learn about love and the American dream, honesty and respect, and all of these situations that, at least for me, I don't really encounter on an everyday basis. Like, yeah, I know about honesty and love and respect, but within the veil of organized crime, obviously not, right? I make YouTube channels about books. I am the least threatening person on the planet. But I'm glad LeBron James read this book. Of course, this is like a classic for a reason, right? Like, a lot of people talk about this book. A lot of people say it's great. A lot of people say the movie's great. And it can get kind of, maybe annoying isn't the right word, but it can get kind of repetitive and it could turn people off from reading it. I don't even think I mentioned The Godfather when I was building this bookcase right here. I don't think I mentioned it in that video when I answered the question, like, what was my favorite book ever? It's probably like top 3, and it ain't 3, between Watchmen, Godfather, and Overstory. But still, it is so good. I will say one of the books that I did not see listed in this article is the Malcolm X autobiography. Like, LeBron has been seen multiple times reading that book, and he has answered some questions and talked about it. So I don't know why it wasn't listed in the original, the OG article that I saw, but it still deserves a mention because he has been seen with that book a lot. Obviously, it's an autobiography of Malcolm X and his life and his story as told through him and through Alex Haley, who, with the family's permission, kind of finished the book after Malcolm X's early passing. And when I was thinking of including the autobiography of Malcolm X in this video, I was trying to think if I like got everything that I could get out of that book, and I don't think I did. I think I was in a weird place where I was reading the book, but I wasn't like paying attention, like I wasn't analyzing a book like that. And that's definitely a book you should analyze, right? You have an incredibly important civil rights leader. And hey, I love Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and obviously like all the work that he did for Black and brown civil rights is incredibly important and necessary. I wish we learned more about Malcolm X too. I think it's a weird situation for me because I remember annotating the book. I remember trying to pay attention to it. And like a lot of that information didn't get retained. And of course, like regardless of what you think of like his practices, Malcolm X is a very important historical figure. And personally for me, it's someone that like I really want to learn more about. And at least now, with me reading more, with me having this channel and wanting to get better at like not only explaining myself but also explaining books more, I think like my brain is in a space, is in a time where I can read that book and kind of get what I want out of it, regardless on whether even if I like the book or not. But I know I'll be able to get more out of it in terms of like what Malcolm is trying to say and what Alex Haley and them together are trying to say. And also like my reaction and my response to what is being told in the story, if that makes sense. You know, I want to thank y'all for watching this video. I know this is a little bit of a shorter one, but this is quite literally like I saw the meme of LeBron being on the first page of books and I'm like, I have to talk about this. And there were definitely books that I have heard of and books that I hadn't heard of on this list of books that LeBron has publicly read. So I hope that maybe y'all were able to update your TBRs, or at least your little knowledge of some books that exist out there in the world. I think one of the things that can be really intimidating about reading is just how many books and just how much stuff there is to read in general. I try to do a very good job of keeping my circle of people that I take recommendations from and booktubers that I watch and things like that. I try to keep that circle pretty small. Otherwise, I just get like overwhelmed with choice. So I hope a video like this can do like, it's only like 6 or 7 books. You know, it's nothing crazy. It's nothing crazy. You might only like one of them. You know, take what you like, leave the rest, and then just keep on moving. But I'll finish it off for realsies by thanking y'all for your support. Currently, I'm almost at 100 subscribers. I think I'm at 91 or 92. So I really appreciate all the support, whether you are subscribed and watching or whether you're just watching this video. Anything that y'all give me, I truly, truly appreciate it. If you want to be updated next time I upload a video, please subscribe. Like I said, we're going to 2 videos a week now. So I would appreciate all the support that I can get. And I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.